November is the longest month of the year for college football fans, and we're squarely in November, whether you're a team that has title hopes or conference title hopes, or they stink and you just want the season to end, or anywhere in between. November, it feels like it's 3 months long. Squarely in November right now, and Illinois has got 3 more games to finish off this season strong. Jam-packed show here today. Coming off a bye week, we're going to kind of reset the season for Illinois and look ahead to these next 3 games. That starts with Maryland. Oregon and Indiana survived big scares on the road this weekend, but they were able to pull both those games out. It was a really bad weekend for the ACC. Really bad weekend. There's some chaos scenarios in that conference that we're going to look at too. We're going to look ahead to the full slate this weekend, and then we're going to make some game picks. Not going to give away what my record was last week. We'll get to it. All right, let's first start with Illinois. Coming off a bye week, what is this season going to be? That's the question that keeps circulating in my mind as we head into these final 3 games, 3 winnable games. They're 6-3 right now. They've had some defensive struggles. They're 3-3 in the Big Ten. They haven't had a consistent run game really all year. But even with all that, 6-3, good team, and have a chance to go to another good bowl game, just like last year. Citrus Bowl is a good bowl game outside the playoff. It's a good bowl game. They got a chance to do that again here this season. Let's do a little bit of a bye week reset. They've got Maryland, Wisconsin, on the road at Wisconsin, and Northwestern to finish off this season. You can see their schedule here. Again, 6-3. Played 2 games, lost to Ohio State, had a bye week, played 2 more games, had another bye week. So now they're healthy. They should be ready for this final stretch here to close out November and the season. They've got a real good chance to go 9-3. Again, that's something that Illinois football has never done. Go back-to-back years at 9-3. They got a real good chance to do it. Maryland, Wisconsin, and Northwestern, all at least in the bottom half of the Big Ten, if not worse. All right, games around the country. Oregon at Iowa. Man, nobody in the country was as right about this game as I was last week. I told you it was going to be gross. I told you it was going to be low scoring, and it was going to be tight in the fourth quarter, and it was. It took an Atticus Sappington game-winning field goal at the buzzer to give Oregon the win against Iowa. 18-16, they win it. Oregon had to go in and win Iowa's way, and they did. You knew that, especially with the weather, it was pouring the entire game. You knew Oregon was going to have to go in and play the way that Iowa wanted to play. And they did just that, and they were still able to win it. They didn't move it through the air very much. They didn't really move it much at all in entirety. They did run the ball, though, certainly much better than Iowa has been run on so far this year. So that was impressive out of the Ducks offense. Didn't have to throw it too much, not too much pressure on Dante Moore. They just handed it off and moved it when they had to. Mark Gronowski went down the field with Iowa late in the fourth quarter and scored a touchdown to go up, and Oregon had the answer. They had the answer when they needed to have it. They get the win against Iowa. Iowa was Iowa on offense, certainly, and defense. They didn't move the ball at all. 239 total yards. 138 pass yards was actually more than expected, to be honest. I said last week Mark Gronowski didn't know what a forward pass was. They figured it out a little bit here. The biggest thing about this game, outside of Iowa uglying it up and making Oregon fight for it, time of possession, Iowa won it by 7 minutes, 33.5 to 26.5 for Oregon. So Iowa, after this game, they had a shot to become real players this year. They're out of college football playoff contention now with their 3rd loss. Oregon, they're still in the mix for the Big Ten title game. Maybe Ohio State loses to Michigan again. Maybe Indiana drops one, and Oregon only has 1 loss. We'll see what the tiebreakers are. So Oregon's still in the mix. They're certainly going to be a playoff team, I would think. Another scary game. Indiana on the road at Penn State. Indiana's 2nd-ranked team in the country. 27-24, much like the Oregon game, they needed a drive at the end to win it. They were trailing. They win it 27-24 on a spectacular, probably the best catch that we're going to see. Well, probably the best catch that we're going to see all year from Omar Cooper Jr. What a final drive from Fernando Mendoza. They needed it. And he did not play well for most of this game. He really didn't. But they're down 4. They need to go score a touchdown to win the game. He gets sacked on the first play of the drive. It's 2nd and 15, 16. And next play, first down, first down, first down, first down, first down. And Indiana all of a sudden is at the 10-yard line, and they get a play from one of their really good receivers. Elijah Surratt didn't even play in this game. For Penn State, they're still a really talented team. They have a really high-level roster. They just haven't put it together this year at all. But they still have good players. That's why this game was the way that it was. Zane Durant played well. Denai Dennis Sutton probably played his best game of the year. And they got some passing game from Ethan Grunkmeyer, really for the first time since he came in for Drew Aller, who's out for the year. So that's why this game was close, was because Penn State, they came to play, and they haven't given up on the season yet, even if most people that thought they were going to go to the playoff and maybe compete for a national title, they're not doing that. But the players and the coaches, to their credit, that are still there, had them ready to play and ready to go. Penn State falls to 3-6. I actually feel better about Indiana after this game. You're going to have to win games like this throughout the course of a season if you're going to go on a national title run, unless you're Ohio State. Maybe Ohio State doesn't have to this year. But most of the time, you're going to have games like this. You'd rather win them than lose them, obviously. And Indiana, they did just what they needed to do when they needed it, which was go 80 yards for a touchdown. Tough environment. Beaver Stadium was rocking. It was pretty full. So I feel good about Indiana, despite, almost losing to a 3-5 Penn State team. But Penn State still has good players, so wasn't overly surprised that they were in the game. Indiana's still able to come out on top. BYU at Texas Tech, this was the biggest game of the year for the Big 12, and Texas Tech just dominated it, 29-7. And it really should have been worse, if you ask me. There were a lot of Texas Tech drives that kind of stalled out in the red zone, and that actually kept BYU somewhat in the game, although it was, I think, 22-0 pretty quickly. So Texas Tech, they flexed a little bit at home against BYU this weekend. Baron Morton, he played well again. He missed a couple of games because of injury, and then the backup quarterback came in and played well, Will Hammond, and then he got hurt, so it's Baron Morton again. And he's a good player, and he played well on Saturday, but they didn't need much from him because their defense was so good. And we talked a lot about last week how this game was going to be decided on Bear Bachmeier's ability to throw the football. And he couldn't throw. He couldn't throw to win, was what was the line of thinking that we had last week on this show. Can he throw to win? And the answer we found out was no. He's a true freshman, so he's going to get better. And a tough spot for him, leading an undefeated team on the road, crazy environment down in Lubbock. But on Saturday, he wasn't able to do it. And he's a dual threat guy, 12 rushing yards. He didn't threaten them in any way, the Texas Tech defense. Now, Texas Tech's defense is very good and very good at stopping the run specifically. So they really made BYU one-dimensional through the air. And if you're going to make BYU one-dimensional, that's the part of the game that you want to make them have to do. And it was clear very early that Bachmeier and the BYU offense wasn't going to be able to get much going if they weren't going to run the ball. So that's Texas Tech BYU. Texas Tech, they've got a firm control on the Big 12 now. Maybe not firm, but they're likely going to go to the Big 12 championship game with one loss and the tiebreaker over BYU now. I think it's probably most likely that we'll get a rematch of this game in the Big 12 championship game. Maybe Utah can sneak in there. I think Texas Tech and Utah are probably the two best teams in the league, but Utah's got a couple of losses, so BYU might have to drop another one for that to happen. It was a really bad weekend for the ACC, too. Really bad weekend. A lot of bad results for that conference. Wake Forest went on the road and beat Virginia. Said last week, Virginia, if you're a legitimate team, you don't lose to Wake Forest at home. Well, we have our answer now. Cal went on the road and beat Louisville. UConn, not a conference game, but they beat Duke. Duke is 5-4 overall. Miami, they bounced back and beat Syracuse, and then SMU beat Boston College. Those last two aren't bad for the ACC. But let's see those standings. We've got the top 6 in the ACC standings right here. Look at this log jam. We've got 4 teams with 1 loss in the conference, and Louisville sitting there with 2. Miami's not even listed in the top 6. Your guess is as good as mine as to who is going to win this conference. Georgia Tech, I think, has the best odds right now because they might hold all the tiebreakers. But again, the ACC is very weird with scheduling where a lot of these teams haven't or won't play each other. So we could get into some crazy tiebreaker scenarios. One of the chaos scenarios in the ACC that I want to point out to you, you see Duke, they're 4-1. They're 4-1 in the ACC. They're 5-4 overall. If Duke ends up 8-4 and 7-1 in the ACC and somehow gets into the ACC title game and wins it, we might have a situation where the ACC is left out of the playoff. Maybe Tulane or Memphis or USF or North Texas, 2 of those teams from Group of 5 conferences are going to end up being ranked higher than Duke with 4 losses. And I don't see a Georgia Tech loser to Duke in the ACC championship game getting in. Duke with 4 losses as the ACC champion would be just devastating for the ACC, and I already think it's looking more and more like we're gonna have 1 team from the ACC, and it's going to be the conference champion winner. But if it's Duke, might not have one at all. Let's look at our season record. 23-12 straight up. Continue to be impressed with myself in that facet. 2-1 week last week. Back to 500. Mr. 500 returns. He never went away, but now he's back. 18-18 against the spread. I think I have like 6 picks this weekend to try to turn the tide, although I know we'll go 3-3 and it will be 21-21 next week. But we're not going to give up. We're still looking for 55%, even though Jim says you won't make any money that way. You'll get pretty close. Notre Dame at Pitt. Game day. Going to Pittsburgh for Notre Dame and Pitt. Now, on these games, I have taken away the rankings from our graphic. Don't be alarmed. Mainly that's because the rankings we want to go off of are the college football playoff rankings, and Tuesday night they come out. This show goes out on Tuesday night, so we don't know the updated rankings. Don't want to use last week's. All right, all roads in this game lead to Jeremiah Love, like they do in most Notre Dame games. Man, he's such a good running back. He's so good. He can run through you with power, and he has breakaway speed too. And when Jeremiah Love comes out of the game, they've got probably the best backup back in the country in Jadarian Price. Over 100 yards per game for Jeremiah this year. He can catch it a little bit out of the backfield. 16 touchdowns. Maybe a sleepy Heisman chance here for Jeremiah Love if Notre Dame wins out and goes 10-2, and he's the reason why. Maybe a sneaky chance. I don't know who's going to win the Heisman right now either. But yeah, that's where it starts for Pitt's defense to try to stop this high-flying Notre Dame offense because they really can't score. And this Pitt defense, in a word, I would call them average. You can get them through the air. They've got a very good rush defense, which is why I highlight Jeremiah Love, because he's going to have his work cut out for him. But they can be had through the air, can Pitt's defense, and Notre Dame has a really good quarterback in C.J. Carr. And Pitt's got a pretty good quarterback too. By the way, welcome to the show, Pitt. This is the first time we've talked about Pitt this year. Mason Heinschel, I want to introduce you to. That's Pitt's quarterback. He took over 5 games ago, and that's when Pitt really took off, was when Heinschel got put in as the starting quarterback. But you can see the comparison here. Obviously, Heinzel, a lot less games played than C.J. Carr, but C.J. Carr has been really impressive in his first year starting here at Notre Dame. So it's going to be, I think this could be a sneaky fun game. Maybe not sneaky, game days there. Notre Dame's a big favorite on the road, and Pitt really needs it. They're 7-2. They have one ACC loss, so they're in that group. Now, this isn't an ACC game, and Pat Narduzzi made sure to let you know that this week. Pat Narduzzi is asked if he felt this is a must-win, and he said he'd rather get beat by 100 in this game than to lose another ACC game. I don't know. You want that guy saying that? He could have just said, no, it's not a must-win. Yikes. I think Notre Dame's going to win this game. I think they're just much better than Pitt. Pitt lost to West Virginia. It was a long time ago. They're a better team now, but still. Notre Dame, minus 11.5. I think they win. I think they cover. And another rare over from me. I should have given out the under in the Oregon-Iowa game last week. I was all over it. But we're giving out the over here. I think we can expect fireworks. Notre Dame has so many options to score. And Notre Dame's defense isn't that good, so I think Pitt can score too. So I think Notre Dame wins, covers the 11.5, big number on the road, but I think they get it done. And we got over 55.5 points as well. Let's get down to the SEC. Big one in Athens this week. Let's start in Tuscaloosa. Oklahoma at Alabama. Saturday, 2:30. Like I said, in Tuscaloosa. Again, big one. Big one for the Sooner defense, really, specifically. Yet again, this game, to me, comes down to can Oklahoma just shut down the opposing team? Because that's what they're going to need. I just think they're so limited offensively right now with John Mateer. They haven't really run the ball. The good news is that the Oklahoma defense is great. It's outstanding. Maybe one of the best, probably top 3 units in the country. The one thing they don't do is get takeaways. But a couple of weeks ago against Tennessee, they got 3, and they won. Can they do that again against Alabama, who has not turned the ball over a lot? Ty Simpson has been so efficient, so effective throwing the football. 1 pick. 1 pick on the year for Ty Simpson against a defense that has not turned really anybody over except for Tennessee a couple of weeks ago. Ty Simpson has taken 15 sacks. It's not a ton, but it's not none either. And Alabama's had a little bit of inconsistency with their offensive line this year. So maybe that's an area that Oklahoma can take advantage of in this game. The problem with the Alabama offense to me, and they've been a good offense, is they can't run the ball very effectively. Haven't all year. Jam Miller's been in and out of the lineup, so that plays a role. Jeremy Bernard, he hasn't really been too consistent in the backfield. And Alabama's passing offense is very reliant on big plays. Very reliant on big plays. And when they don't hit them, games get really tight because they can't put teams away. They couldn't put LSU away last week on Saturday because they couldn't hit a big play. A couple of times just right through Ryan Williams' hands or just a couple of deep shots that just miss. That's when games with Alabama get tight. It's why the game against South Carolina a couple of weeks back was tight, because they weren't explosive. Are they going to be explosive enough in this game against a really good Oklahoma defense? I think they will be. I think they're good enough to win this game and get a couple of big plays. I think 1 or 2 is all they'll need, because I expect a lower scoring game. Alabama wins. Alabama's going to cover the 6.5. Alabama at home under a touchdown, I just tend to really like. But they have been playing close games. But I'll take them to cover the 6.5. I just don't think John Mateer for Oklahoma is healthy enough, can do quite enough to take down Bama in Tuscaloosa, in Bryant-Denny Stadium. 1 or 2 big plays. That's all Alabama needs. Now we get to Athens. Texas at Georgia. Huge game for Texas. Big game for Georgia too, but they've got a little more wiggle room. Texas has 2 losses. They've got 2 losses, and they really need it. The good thing for Texas is that Arch Manning has seemingly started to turn it on a little bit here the last couple of weeks. He's got 346 and 328 in the last 2 games. Started the year really poorly. Really poorly. Wasn't what anybody expected. Is this the game that we watch on Saturday and say, oh, this is what he's supposed to be? This is what we were waiting for? I think it could be, because he's played well the last few weeks and is really starting to rise his level. And, last week against Vanderbilt's got a pretty good defense. They scored 34 points, and he had 328 yards passing. Is this the game where you say, there he is? That's Arch Manning. We're going to find out. Texas can run it with their backs, too. Wisner and C.J. Baxter's back from injury, too. So it's a good Texas offense against, for Georgia, not countrywide, for Georgia, an average Georgia defense. You can have Georgia. We saw Ole Miss go up and down the field on them. We saw Tennessee go up and down the field on them. I don't put Texas's offense to that level, but I think they're a good offense. This is the defensive matchup in this game. Two good defenses. Texas maybe slightly better. I look at the sack and the turnover numbers, again, for Texas's defense. If you're getting sacks and turnovers in games, it's really hard to lose them. It's really hard to lose them if you're sacking the opposing quarterback and turning them over. And even when Texas was struggling this year on offense, when the defense shows up like that, again, it's hard to lose games. They're 7-2 and struggled mightily on offense for most of the year. Maybe they're turning the corner here. If you had to pick your battle against the Georgia defense, it's probably running the ball, and for the Texas defense. And we know that Georgia and Gunnar Stockton is a mobile guy. They can make you play 11 on 11. So it's going to be a really interesting game. I think it'll be more high scoring than like Bama and Oklahoma. I think Texas is going to win this game. I'm taking Texas. I got to take a shot here. I like Texas's trajectory in this season. And they know if they lose, their season's done. At least what they wanted in the preseason. Their season's over. Georgia doesn't necessarily have that pressure, although 2 losses, not in the SEC championship game, it puts you on the bubble of the college football playoff, although I don't really see a 2-loss SEC team being left out. 3 losses, certainly. 2 losses, maybe not. Texas needs this one. I like that they've won a couple of close games the last couple of weeks. Georgia beat them twice last year. They really want to get one back, including in the SEC championship game. I think Arch puts it all together, and Texas can get it done on the road. On the road at night in Athens. Let's hop back to the Big Ten. Iowa going on the road at USC this weekend. USC, they're still in play for the playoff. Not for the Big Ten championship game, but for the playoff. They're in play here. They've only got 2 losses still. They win out. What's the committee going to do with them? They've got a loss to Illinois. They've got a loss to Notre Dame. Don't have a lot of great wins, but 10-2 in the Big Ten. I don't know. And Iowa's a good team. They're not going to be ranked this week because they lost, even though they played Oregon better than anybody except Indiana has. So, interesting spot for USC. Jaden Mayava, what do you got? This is the best defense that you're going to play this year. It's the best defense you're going to face maybe in your entire college career, because this Iowa defense is outstanding. And Jaden Mayava has been really impressive in his first year starting. Throwing a lot of touchdowns, not turning it over too much. He's got great weapons in the running back room, and Mekhi Lemon, I think, is one of the best wideouts in the country. And USC, they're the type of team that can challenge Iowa's defense, I think, because they're just so vertical. And Iowa really wants to pack you in, but USC is very vertical. I don't think this is going to be a similar game to the Oregon-Iowa game last week, because Oregon was going to Iowa, and Iowa had the crowd and the rain, and it was just always going to be ugly. I don't view this as the same game. Look at this Iowa defense. Not much that you can get. You can run the ball a little bit, and that's what Oregon did to win last week. Run the ball a little bit, but that's pretty much it. That is pretty much it for this Iowa defense. Now, if you had to pick your battle, like I said, it'd be running the football. So, do I think Iowa can bounce back going on the road after a tough loss at home? I don't. I think Iowa's a good team. Their offense just, like every year, if USC scores 25 points, which is not a lot in college, Iowa has no chance. So I think USC is going to be able to score enough. And enough against Iowa might be 10. So I think USC wins this game. I'll pick them to cover the 6.5 too. Iowa knows how to muddy up a game, but touchdown on the road against a good USC offense, I'll take USC to win and cover. Maryland at Illinois. Had a week off last week. Did you enjoy it? You're going to have to let me know. Final stretch starts here for Illinois. What did Illinois sort out on the bye week? Did they feel the need to sort anything out on the bye week? They're trending upward, kind of, since Washington, even though that's only a couple of weeks ago. Did they figure out the running game? Did they figure out more about the defense? Because it was a good start last week against Rutgers. Maryland, by the way, 5 straight losses coming into this game. 4-5 Maryland. And Illinois is going to have to figure out Maryland's quarterback, Malik Washington. Freshman, I've been impressed with him this year. Counting stats probably aren't going to blow you away. They're 4-5. It's not a great team. But he's been impressive at the quarterback position. Like I said, freshman. And hasn't turned it over doesn't throw too many picks. And for a freshman, that's a really good sign. He has thrown it not too efficiently, but not terrible. And he can run. 263 rush yards don't lead you to believe that he does all that much, but he really can. He can really run. And I don't want you to lose sight of that don't be surprised if this guy takes off a lot against Illinois. You have to be pocket aware on the pass rush if you're Illinois' defense. They're still trying to get that pass rush going too, but like I said, if this guy takes off, boom, he's gone. You have to keep him contained on the pass rush. Stay true to your lanes. The playmakers for Maryland, maybe the best name receiver room in the country, Shalik Knotts and Octavian Smith Jr. Some really good names in the Maryland wide receiver room. But these guys are good players. These guys are good players, but they don't scare you. Neither of these guys scare you if you're Illinois' defense. You feel good if you want to play man-to-man against these guys. They might catch a few balls, but neither of them have, oh my goodness, we have to shade towards them, double them if we can. We can't go man-to-man. We're going to have to go quarters or something. No. These aren't those guys. So you focus in on the quarterback. And Maryland can't run the ball very well either. So it's all on Malik Washington and these receivers that are good. They're Big Ten caliber players, but it's nobody like Machi Lemon that we saw a couple of weeks ago, or Jeremiah Smith for Ohio State. It's not even Denzel Boston from Washington, who's a really good player too. These guys are not that. So Illinois, they're in a good spot on paper on this game, but that's why they make you play it on the field too. Here's Barry Lunney and Aaron Henry on what they see from Maryland and where, if any, they think Illinois can take advantage.
They're talented, and they play hard, and their scheme is good. You know, watching the film last week was really impressive. The way that they're playing, they try to attack the ball and created a lot of turnovers. They've created a lot of havoc with that. Got a lot of respect for how they play.
Yeah, Malik Washington, I wouldn't even consider him a freshman, man. He plays like he's a senior. I mean, he has a very, very live arm. We just got to do a really good job in trying to confuse him and cause a little bit of chaos for him, man. But he's talented. I mean, it's scary that he's a freshman. I mean, they've done a really, really good job with him, and we know he makes their offense go, right? I think it helps to have some older guys up front. They got some leaders up front on their O-line, a bunch of experience. He got some really good wideouts he throws to.
What do you want them to say? they're not going to say, oh, yeah, we got this. We got this team. And Maryland can challenge them. They can do it, but they haven't done it so far this year. So what are the Illinois advantages in this game? Offensively, I think everywhere. The Maryland defense is not very good. They don't challenge you too much up tight to the line of scrimmage, and they don't have great run stoppers either. I think the advantages on offense for Illinois are immense, and it should be another game where Luke Altmaier shines, especially if they can get the running game going again early, like they did a couple of weeks ago against Rutgers. On defense, all you got to do is cover. And that's easier said than done, especially for this Illinois defense. You just have to cover. Because if you take away the passing game, like I said a little bit earlier, Maryland can't run the football effectively. So if you make them one-dimensional, they're going to have nowhere to go. I think this is a very similar game to the Rutgers game. And Maryland also is last in the Big Ten in time of possession, which speaks to my point. They can't run the ball and they can't stop the run. So you got to get the running game going early for Illinois' offense, and then Luke Altmaier is going to be able to pick them apart, I think. So, prediction-wise, look, it's 2 touchdowns and a hook, minus 14.5, Illinois favored. I don't see that being a problem. I'm going to take Illinois to win and cover the 14.5 points. Maryland's defense is banged up. It's not very good. I think they should throttle them a little bit. And, the Mike Locksley rumors, he's the head coach for Maryland, they could get the Maryland team to play a little bit more than maybe we expect. But, like I said, I think it's similar to Rutgers, where it's just a dominating win. Cover the 14.5. No big deal. On to Wisconsin. We'll talk about that game next week. So Illinois minus 14.5, they win it. All right, another great show. But before we go, one quick thought on the Big Ten Conference's seemingly incessant need to just barrel into a private capital deal. I told you guys a month ago I thought this was a terrible idea. USC and Michigan are the only ones that agree, or at least have the guts to say it. The Big Ten just doesn't seem to care, though. Tony Petitti, by hell or high water, is going to push this thing through. If it passes, what would happen? It would extend the conference grant of rights by another decade through 2046, but maybe without Michigan and USC after 2036. It makes no sense. Plus, it would establish uneven revenue distributions throughout the conference. It's just a mess, and it's not even for that much money. $2.4 billion over 20 years. That's like $7 million per school per year. That's nothing. It's a drop in the bucket for these programs. Even if it's all up front, so what? It's not enough to move the needle. And Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan, they're the schools that will benefit from the uneven revenue, and Michigan still says they don't want it. Those three would get about $190 million each, which is about $50 million more than USC and Oregon would get. The other 13 schools would get about $100 million. Yep, that's including Illinois. There's really no part of this that I'm for. I do think it's worth mentioning that both USC and Michigan have interim presidents right now, so they have nothing to lose, and in turn, they do have the stones to say no to the Big Ten Conference. But I hate it. I think it's unnecessary. And Penn State and Ohio State, you're that desperate for $10 million more per year? And that's on the high end, $10 million more per year? It's a little ridiculous to me. Don't know what they're going to give up for this money. Nobody knows. And that's the problem, is because you're going to give up something, and it's probably not something that anybody will like. That's our show. Thank you so much for joining us. Tell your mom, tell your dad, tell your sister, tell your cousin, tell everybody. Inside the Illini every single week on the WAND Now app. Really easy to watch. You know how to do it. Just tell them, or download it on their TV for them. We'll be back next week, hopefully after an Illinois win, and we'll talk about Wisconsin and Northwestern. 2 more weeks to go in the season after Saturday. Enjoy Saturday. We'll see you back here next week.